the first question that I would like to ask you, Katie and Gay, is how do you relate to each other when it comes to loving, conscious relationships?
Well, that's sort of been our main focus over the last almost 45 years now. So,
well, when we got together, it was 1980, way before you two were probably around. And at the time, there were no Oprahs or there was no books on relationship, and so
there were hardly any good relationships too.
We didn't have any role models,
yeah.
And so we had to make it up ourselves. And so Conscious Loving, the original book, Conscious Loving, is just basically a record of all the things we did to have our relationship work, like being honest with each other and taking responsibility and being committed to our creativity. So in a way, I'm glad we didn't have any role models because it forced us to really go down inside. But I think we were both committed to never settling for less, though.
Yes, and right away we committed to our vision, even though we had no idea how that was going to happen. So, and that's where our conviction that commitment is so important if you want to create something new or change a dynamic that's going on, that commitment, getting into the game, getting on the field is really the most important thing. And then we discovered that recommitting, people think, well, once I've done it, that's it. And so if I, something messes up or, we commit not to criticize each other and then we criticize each other, then it's all over. But what we found is that the move that really makes the difference is recommitting. So, not beating yourself up or beating each other up, but recommitting to what you really want and then taking an action in that direction. And that just makes a huge difference in being able to build what you want. Like we say that commitment gets you into the game, but recommitment gets you from here to there, here to where you're really wanting to go. So all of those things we discovered just by practicing and seeing what would it take for us to create a relationship that ran primarily on positive energy, which we hadn't seen, but we thought, okay, that's what we want to do.
Yeah, because we'd been in relationships before that where you go through that, all the time. And I was really tired of that. I didn't meet Katie till I was in my 30s. I think I was 34 at the time. And I was really tired of this whole kind of relationships. And so I knew it was possible that if we worked out some fundamental things, we could have this steady flow of conscious loving all the time. And it took us years to put it together, but finally it's been all worth it because, we've had, well, here we are in 2023 now, and we haven't had an argument this century. So
yeah, there's been no criticism. There's been no blame and criticism in our house.
We've lived here for 23 years now.
So, and in this century. So I'd love to be able to say that to people. Well, we haven't had any arguments in this century.
That's incredible.
And it's
congratulations, by the way, on that.
Thank you. Yeah, and we've really found that what I keep coming back to the power of being real, the power of authenticity, because so many relationships are actually built on people tell you, well, you gotta, put your best foot forward. You got to present, you got to kind of pull yourself together so that you, in my era, my aunt, for example, would say, I don't have to do all of that stuff anymore because I've got my man. So the whole education that people have is to kind of present a false front. And then when you get into the relationship, it's like, wait a minute, who is this person? So we have really just found that authenticity is such a key to creating vitality, to creating a passionate exchange, but also to creating kind of renewal. So you're not recycling. You're I keep discovering new things about you every day, and the whole, just a rising of what's going on. How are you? What are you discovering? What are you feeling? All of those things flow on this wonderful river of authenticity.
It's so inspiring to hear your story, because we met about 6 months, 7 months ago. We got together and we were 33 when we got together. And it's so amazing to see someone who's that far along the journey, and it's very inspiring, because we feel exactly the same way, that we've had that connection from the beginning of authenticity and integrity and just being honest with each other. And that was also what actually brought us together, because it's what we had not found in previous relationships, and it became that uh that standard that we will not settle for less than that anymore.
Like your North Pole. That's very inspiring.
Well, congratulations on not settling for less. It's all worth it.
So important. And also, the thing is that we also did we cleaned our side of the street prior to getting into this relationship. And I'm wondering if this is also something that you have done in your own journey. When you were getting together, you were already on the path of becoming the best versions of yourself, and working on yourself, and being inspired to really work on who you really are and being that authentic version.
I know that was certainly true for me. And that was one of the very first conversations we had. And it was really clear to me from the moment I met you that you had been working on yourself for a long time. Yeah, when Gay opened his mouth, I thought, oh my gosh, this is the smartest person that I've ever met, but he's also the funniest person that I've ever met. So that combination, I mean, that was it. So
it made up for my lack of good looks.
Fishing for a little compliment there, huh?
Speaking of receiving love and receiving compliments, that's probably also something very important that you're talking about a lot, and how to receive love, how to receive all the greatness and appreciation and all of that, right?
Yeah, that's such a great point, Rita.
That's really a great point, because that's one of the things we teach in our seminars and when we work with people, is the importance of simply opening yourself up to receive more and more positive energy, more love, more wisdom, more energy. And if you put your attention on that one thing, that would make a great life, if you just kept opening up to more and more ability to receive positive energy. And every time I feel like I've gotten about as far as I can go, then something happens that expands me even further. And so I think that's a good relationship to have with life, to be committed to expanding your genius in every moment and your ability to receive and give love. If you can do those two things, life is going to work beautifully.
One thing that I've begun to notice even more deeply in recent years is that the act of appreciating, giving a compliment, that appreciating is so underutilized and so valuable, because when I appreciate, I'm appreciating something that you might just take for granted because it's so easy for you. But I've always found too that a person's genius is easy for them. It's not difficult. But there's also this assumption that it's easy for everybody else. And so the act of appreciating can help people to recognize, oh, that's something that's unique to me, and something that I can receive, but also that I can use to express my creativity in the world. So we really emphasize appreciation as well. Speaking of taking things for granted, noting that you guys are in Brazil, I've not been to Brazil, but I have an admiration for it because I love tropical fruit, and Brazil has 300 varieties of tropical fruit. I have a book here on all the tropical fruit of Brazil. I've actually gone through it page by page, saying, whoa. So don't take for granted when you go to the fruit market anywhere in Brazil.
Yeah, we keep discovering new fruits. Just yesterday, we discovered this new fruit because now it's summer season. So, all the fruits are coming out, and you're like, wow, it's something so unique. And yeah, it's really rich. The whole nature over here, even behind us, you see that's the rainforest.
Yes.
And it makes you really appreciate life also to a completely new level when it's abundant and so rich, not just with nature, but also with weather, with sun, with whatever is you go out of the house and you immediately are immersed in this absolutely incredible nature and animals, flowers and smells, and all of your senses are awakened because you are immersed in that environment. So it's really wonderful, which also helps even relationships. And we keep on spending time in nature and keep on walking around and discovering these new things, and every single time there's always something that comes up in a conversation when we are spending time like that. And that's also a very important thing, that spending time as a quality time to really give each other attention. So not only appreciation, not only love, but also attention, and keep on diving into the depths of how we see the world and who this person is. And even just today I was like, who are you? Like I just like about you looking at Gay, and I'm like, oh my God, I keep on learning about him every day. And that's exactly how I see our relationship too, that there's always all these nuances and new subtle things to learn in every conversation, in every interaction in a daily life.
I have a question. So I'll also share a bit of my experience. I actually stayed single for 13 years because I set my standards super high, and I was not ready to settle or even try for something. I just knew that when I meet the person, I will know and I will see that, it's the match. And that happened after 13 years with Ruta. What did happen was that, in receiving the love in the beginning, especially, there was a lot of walls breaking down, and the expansion of the container was quite uncomfortable. Is this something you've noticed, that receiving can be also uncomfortable and challenging, or is it usually an uplifting experience?
Oh, I think it's probably much more difficult for people than giving, because also we're trained to, it's better to give than receive, but people's barriers to really being loved and appreciated come up when you get into a close relationship. And that's certainly one of the things that we noticed was this, kind of.
When I was a little boy, my grandmother, I saw this really up close, because my grandmother was a fabulous cook, and she was famous for her pies and her fried chicken. But if you tried to compliment her on that, I mean, I sat around a table where there was 12 people trying to tell her how great her chicken was. And, oh no, it was, I didn't put in quite enough salt today. Oh no. And, do you really think the pie was good today? Last year's was much better, I thought. And so just try to give somebody a compliment sometime. It's harder than you would think. But here's the thing: in order to have the good things in life, it's much easier to just open up to receive more of them rather than pursuing them harder. Because if you get right to the source of yourself and open yourself to receiving the good things of life, whether it's love or money or whatever the good things of life are in your view, well, you don't have much time to complain about things. That you're always in the process of opening up to more and more positive energy. Also, in my view, that's the quick path to your creative development too, because if you're open to life and love, you're also open to the creative impulses of the universe. You don't squelch them all the time. A lot of people, they have a good idea and they, oh no, I could never do that. And then they go back to sleep. So we need to honor our creativity in relationships too, because if you have both people who are committed to their own path of creativity and the creativity of the relationship, that is really a solid kind of thing. And that's what we've been doing for 45 years now.
Yes. And I wanted to come back just for a moment to attention, because it's become so clear to me, especially in recent years, that attention is as much of a nutrient as food and water, that humans require attention. And I've actually said that attention is the currency of relationship, and how you give and receive attention, what scientists call your bids for attention, which we learned and have used a model of one of our cats, who, Allie, we have two British short hair cats, and early in their time with us, Allie would be walking in front, and then she would sort of do this little bustle and fall over. And I knew that she wanted me to pet her. And so we started developing this ritual that when she would flop over, we would always pet her. And that would, scientists would call that a bid for attention, but we started calling it a flopsy because she would go bustle, flop. And so one of the rules that we have suggested to people is never ignore a flopsy. And the kinds of attention that you want, you can share that with each other. You can ask instead of assuming that your partner likes attention the same way you do, and that can be a great source of discovery and also the weaving of this bond in your relationship by giving attention rather than going not now or I'm busy or not giving your full attention.
Yeah, I think it's like attention is the food for the soul. So like I had this line a while back that your soul can be as full as your belly when you feed it the right food. And so
that's lovely. Yes. Yes. And so part of what is a great joy for me is noticing the different ways that I can give attention to Gay, but also letting him know the kinds of attention that I most like. So just a quick example, Gay will come by, like I'm doing something, he'll come by and he'll just pat me. And I just love that. I love being patted. And he knows that. So when he comes by, I might be even engaged in something, but he'll give me a little pat. And that's this, oh, yes.
Sweet. I also would like to come back to what Gay was just talking a moment ago about the positive energy, because we also keep on talking about how important it is to be in high vibration and high frequency and positive energy, and creating from that place, creating ourselves, creating whatever it is that we are individually creating in our lives, but also creating in the relationship, like you said earlier. So I wonder what was your learning throughout life? How do you stay in that high frequency or in positive energy? How do you maintain that and sustain that energy in order to really go through all the challenges from the right place?
Well, that's a great question, Ruta. Well, one thing to understand vibrationally is that love is the very finest vibration human beings are capable of, in my experience. And fear is the lowest vibration. And so when you contract in fear, your vibrational rate slows down and roughens up. Whereas when you expand in love, your vibrational rate gets finer and finer and finer and results in a feeling of bliss in your body. And so that's the way human beings are wired up. We're wired for bliss. But most of us don't take advantage of the opportunity. But it's not about trying to stay up. It's about naming it and being with it wherever you are. So if you're afraid, it's not a good idea to try to pretend you're not, because that really roughens up your vibration. But if you're afraid and say, I'm afraid, then you've spoken a vibration that matches an interior vibration, and that act frees you up. You actually will feel the release of energy when you do that. So a lot of relationship work is about learning how to speak honestly about your feelings. I'm sad, I'm scared, I'm angry. Those kind of statements are really important in a relationship because they're at the bottom of what bothers a lot of people. But you also need to be open to speaking about the positive aspects of things too. And so, here we think that it's partly about being authentic with the other person, speaking and listening honestly. It's also partly about being very positively taking positive responsibility, not like blaming, but why did I create that pattern? Instead of, why are you doing this to me?
Again.
Why would I be experiencing this pattern again? We call that the move, because it really frees you up when you go from thinking something is the other person's fault to saying, why would I be creating a scenario like this right now? What about, where did that come from in me? And so that's a really key move. And sometimes people don't get around to making that move in their human lifetimes. I've seen more than one person, some in my own family, go to their graves still convinced it was the other person's fault. So it's a big, big, big move in life when you go from blame to positive responsibility. Same thing with creativity. A lot of people don't think they're creative. They have other people that they think of as creative over here. But we're all creative. We wouldn't have got here without millions of years of creativity happening in ourselves over, ages and ages and ages. And so we need to honor our creativity and know that when both people are engaged in their creativity, wow, there's not a lot of room for relationship hassles anymore.
And how that applies to what we were just talking about is that taking responsibility is actually reclaiming your creativity so that you can use it by choice. Because when you're engaged in unconscious patterns, you're creating, but you're creating unconsciously. And when you go, what is it that I'm doing that's generating this pattern? Or how am I behaving that's resulting in this? Then I'm reclaiming my ability to make creative choices. And the other thing I wanted to underline about what Gay was saying is it's a thing that we call matching. And if I, instead of trying to be in a certain place, if I match where I am with my speaking, doing my best to speak about what's going on, there's this very magical thing that happens that frees up your flow of energy and your flow of creativity by simply what Gay was calling naming, but actually giving your attention to what's going on and doing your best to describe it rather than analyzing or interpreting or blaming it. It frees up a whole new fountain of creative energy. And so I've noticed that we do that over and over again, so that we don't using any of our energy to try to stay anywhere, because everything is always changing and moving. And so doing my best to match, here's what's going on now. Woo, then I get that, a big wave of energy again that allows me to create even more consciously.
Yeah, tuning in and naming rather than blaming and shaming.
Ooh. See, there you go, an example of creativity on the spot.
Put a little beat under that, and that could be a hip hop song.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're welcome to that if you want to go ahead and engage some of the local musicians.
So talking of things changing all the time, one of the topics has come up in our lives because we live very dynamic lives and, like with a lot of uncertainty and living in the unknown. That's like one of our principles, is to live in the unknown, because that's the playground of creativity. That's where all the creative genius comes out. So one of the big topics that's been coming up, is conviction, faith, and trust. And you spoke about the word conviction right at the beginning. So I'm curious how, how do these terms play in your life? What role do they play in your life? Conviction, faith, and trust.
Well, I would say that conviction for us is, what I would put there is that our experience is commitment. So conviction, it sounds like it's a commit with a little oomph behind it, that you're taking action with a little yes, behind it. And for me, faith is the result of making conscious decisions over and over so that I'm reliable. And I'm reliable to me, I'm reliable to my own sense of integrity, but I'm also reliable in the way that I show up. For example, I do something that sounds really simple, but most people can't do it, which is I do what I say I'm going to do, and I don't do what I say I'm not going to do. And the doing of that and practicing of that, I think, creates a sense of faith. And then what was the third one? I forgot the third one.
Trust.
Trust. Oh, I think trust is a byproduct that, people say, just trust me. And I go, no, 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 absolutely not. Especially if someone says, just trust me. I go, stop sign. But trust is a byproduct of integrity. And it's primarily a byproduct of what I was just saying, that you can reliably do what you say you're going to do. You say, I'm, going to go, and pick up the groceries and I'll meet you back here at 1. And you do that. And over a period of time, that creates a sense of trust that I don't think you can just ask people to reach for.
So the way I would summarize what you just shared is that it comes down to whether or not you're showing up the way you're saying you're going to show up. So if you have a vision that you are working towards and you are wanting to create that, then if you take inspired, deliberate action towards that vision, then inevitably trust is going to be fed. So you're fueling trust and faith and conviction by taking inspired action. Is that right?
Yes. And action over time.
Yeah.
If you show up successfully over a period of months as always telling the truth, well, then I trust you to tell me the truth. It's like that old joke where somebody asks a policeman in New York, how do I get to Carnegie Hall? And the policeman says, practice, practice, practice. There's a lot of practice involved.
Yes, a tremendous amount of practice.
Yeah, so it's not something that happens overnight. Mm-hmm. It took us several years just to get good at being able to say, I'm angry with you right now, instead of you made me angry.
Right.
Or I feel sad right now about something, or I feel scared, or I feel ashamed about that. Those are hard things for me to learn how to do, because I grew up in an environment in the American Deep South where nobody ever tells you the truth about anything.
It's covered over with a kind of sweetness that's very...
Yeah, but I think the general agreement is you don't ever say anything important out of your mouth.
No.
That's always whispered.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Where do you originally come from, Ruta?
I'm coming from Lithuania, so Eastern Europe.
Lithuania. I don't know if they're the same up there, but it's hard to get the truth out of somebody unless they've had a couple of shots of liquor, and then they become more truthful than they ought to be sometimes.
Yeah. India is very similar.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm from India, and India is very similar to that it's all about pretense, and it's all about, always suppressing what you really feel and just being nice to your neighbor, and just keeping it harmonious, but in a very superficial, artificial.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm really curious about, because you're talking about how it took really years for you to go through all these challenges, and now it's in this century you haven't had an argument, and
yes.
Yet from all this experience that you had between the two of you, but also working with a lot of relationships and people, couples, and all of that, have you witnessed any perfect relationships? Do they exist even?
Well, I think we have one. But I mean, if we're gonna I think that in this case, perfect takes you out of the presence, out of the present moment. That perfect, for me, if there was a moment, like I was just thinking about on Wednesdays, we have a wonderful couple of women who come in and clean the house for us, and they have for years, and we just adore them. And so on Wednesdays, when they leave, we take a moment to celebrate the perfection of the house in this moment. We just celebrate it. In fact, we've decided we're not going to have lunch. We're not going to make lunch on Wednesdays. We're going to bring lunch in so we don't mess it up. So it's a recognition that the perfect moments arise, but then of course they pass away because things fall apart, and the cat spills milk on the floor, and those things I think are just part of the ride.
Yeah, and we measure it more, not in terms of perfection, but of the unbroken flow of positive energy and loving connection. And so that's a good thing to measure, because that's something you cannot fake. You know, you either feel that or you don't feel that. And if you don't, then some work needs to be done to get that going again. And, you know, we meet couples from time to time who really have a great flow, but I haven't met any of them that I would call perfect, you know.
No.
But better than most, but not always in the self-help book writing community. We don't always find our best relationships there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the way I would put it is, it's very close to what you said, Gay. You know, it's like where you have that flow and the connection remains no matter what's going on. So if there is something challenging or difficult going on, you maintain the connection. For me, that's a perfect relationship, is that it doesn't cause the breakdown, where both can stay present with each other, even if it's challenging.
Tio keeps on talking about perfect imperfection, that it's not about aiming for perfection, it's more about aiming for acceptance of the imperfection and loving the imperfection and making the most out of the relationship, the dynamic, and taking responsibility, like you said earlier. And when that happens, when the foundation is strong and the flow is strong, then inevitably the relationship is going to be perfect, because it is imperfectly perfect.
Yes. And it's always too about how open and expanded I am to give and receive positive energy. If I'm closed and heading toward fear, then something needs to be dealt with or spoken about. But fortunately, this century, we've been just expanding in love and positive energy and haven't had to put the brakes on.
Yes.
That's been fantastic.
Yes.
So
actually, the box here, I want to show you something, because what you're speaking about, we've been studying what is it, you know, just getting really curious about what is it that allows us to have that unbroken flow of love and harmony. And for years now, we've been sharing what we've been discovering as an integrity skill. And integrity, I love the definition of integrity. It's an unbroken wholeness or totality with nothing wanting. I just love that. So it's not, you know, it's moral, it's really more of alignment. And so we developed skills that we have now in a little deck that people can get from our foundation, which has impeccable agreements, conscious communication, emotional literacy, and healthy responsibility. And the skills that people can learn are all doable. It's nothing, you know, it's nothing that's any kind of woo-woo. It's really like doing what you say you're going to be doing, speaking about what's going on inside you in a way that other people can understand. And as we've practiced these over years, what I've experienced is this internal structure. It's like replaced any sense of, am I doing the right thing or what's going on here, with this is the choice here is to tell the truth. The choice here is to take responsibility for what is occurring. And what is created is a kind of infrastructure that can hold more energy. And I think it's really the solution to what we call the upper limit problem, because as you're experiencing yourself as whole, that you'll notice any break in that you can then respond to with, okay, something needs to be felt or expressed or asked about, that allows integrity, that sense of wholeness, to be felt. And I've noticed that in our relationship over the years, there's just been more and more of grounding in integrity rather than grounding in wobble. And so that's something that I think anybody can learn and practice.
So this reminds me of everything that Tia keeps on talking about, this completion. And that's something that I noticed you were talking about as well on your website and in other places. And that's something that just clicked relatively recently in our lives, where living from a place of completion, living from a place of wholeness, like you just said, living from a place of, you know what, nothing is missing, nothing is wrong, nothing is lacking, there's no scarcity, there's more than enough of everything. And I constantly, consciously, and intentionally choose to come from that place, instead of seeking something outside of myself, seeking attention, being needy, or anything like that in any shape or form, whether that's in a relationship, whether that's in work, clients, money, whatever that is. It's how can I choose to be in that state of completion, just being, I'm completely complete, I don't need anything. And then automatically you give more because you're complete. You're not missing anything anyway.
And then also there's receiving, like you're in the flow basically. So it's not like, just because I don't need anything, I don't get anything. It's like you keep receiving just because you're in that natural organic flow of nature, universe.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
So I'm curious also to learn a little bit about how is it to work together as well in a relationship. Not many people, not many couples decide to work together. And what's the dynamic between the two of you? How did you find the right dynamic so that it really clicks and it's easy, playful, and effortless to work together?
Well, that took some time to develop.
It really took a lot of commitment.
Yeah.
But we had this vision of, see, human beings, for better or for worse, have had male heroes and male gods for the last 5,000, 10,000 years. Before that, there was a goddess era, it looks like, where female gods and goddesses were worshipped. But it's been a male show for a long time. So when I first started writing books and things, when I was around, I think my first book came out when I was around 30, something like that. And so suddenly I was going out speaking and that kind of thing. And I realized suddenly, wait a minute, there's no evolutionary progress to be gained in being another male hero. And that began to form this radical idea in my mind that the ultimate expression of a relation, of one individual, is being able to work with and harmonize with another individual. And so I began to think, wow, the hero of the future is going to be relationship, not the man or the woman, or it's going to be about relationship itself. And so that was my commitment from the beginning. Yeah. But it took us a long time to kind of begin to do that because we had our own programming to deal with.
Yes, which is, I want to tell you, like the pivotal story, which made the difference, because we started speaking together and presenting together and working together almost, well, immediately. The first summer that we lived together, and I was remembering some conference that we were speaking at, and Gay, we were standing next to each other, and Gay was he makes so here, and I'm imagine that I'm Gay, and Gay is making these gestures, and I'm moving and adjusting, and so at a break, I said, hey, listen, I have some things that I'd like to share, and I wonder if you could just make some space for me. And he said, no. And I was like, wait a minute. And he said, my understanding of what you said is that if you have something to say, show up, step up, show yourself, express yourself. And it was first of all, it was very challenging because I was used to the dynamic of having to ask permission to show up. And so and then about a day later, I suddenly realized something that should have been very obvious, that Gay is as older than me as my older brother, who was always known in my family as number one. In fact, my mother would call me and say, I've just talked to number one. And so I became, I became number two. In fact, I developed, in our country, we have a car company, Avis, and their tagline was, we're number two, we try harder. And so I developed what I called an Avis persona, that I just tried harder and, being recognized. So it was a really turning point for me, because I realized that Gay wanted me to be whole and to move with my own dynamic, and then to be his equal in showing up, and rather than having the whole asking for permission. And it allowed me to then step into, oh, what is it that I want to express? And I would even kind of interrupt him sometimes and say, like I would say something. And so it began to interrupt the dynamic that's so prevalent in society, is that everybody looks to the man. And
well, even when we first started going on television shows,
yes.
like I remember the first time we were on Oprah, they came in to wire us up, and one of the producers says, "Which one of you is the talker?" Right. And it started to put the mic on me, and I saw steam coming out of Katie's ears there. But they were very kind to us. They set it up so we were both had a voice there. So they learned that we were both the talker.
And they also, there was a very interesting thing that we learned early on, because back in that day, you had to show up in person.
Yeah.
So there's no internet. So we would show up and we travel to have, 15 minutes, on a national television show. And I remember one show where they actually said to us, you're sitting too close together. We can't, we're not set up to film you. And it was profound for me, because I realized that television, the context of television does not support relationship. It's headshot, individual. And so we began playing with that dynamic of both, we're both here, and we both are speaking, and you got to see what's going on between us in order to really understand. And so I think, it's a little bit better now, but, you still really see in relationship that it's the individual and then the individual, and not really what's going on between them, which is a lot of what we focus on when we're training coaches. We're really training them to look at the dynamic and how each person is contributing to the dynamic.
Yeah, that's so powerful, because one of the big insights and shifts we had in the last month is that, we became a union and we started working as one, not even just working together, but having this third entity, which is us as one. And that's exactly, what you all are talking about, is that
yes,
that dynamic in between is a whole different entity and person, and it needs to be nurtured and cared for as such. And it's also like there's so many points you brought up, because even this whole idea of permission is so profound, because especially I've found it, like, even I've worked with many people too, and I've found it especially with women, it's a very big topic that they need to be given permission, but men have the same in different areas of life. And it's when you realize, I'm not going to wait for permission, I'm going to show up. It's so different. It's like that's it. You're not waiting for anything. So now you just have to live. And
the whole, here I am. Here I am, deal with it.
There's such a repression of, holding back all of this energy, waiting for someone to tell you, yes, you can do it. And when that gets taken off, it's suddenly like, wait, what? What do I do? Someone has to tell me what to do now.
Right.
What part of India did you grow up in?
Mumbai.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. I spent a month in India once, and I'm still trying to figure out what this means. Ruda, does he do that when he's under stress?
I have worked on that a lot. I have come out of the head nod. I can do it now intentionally, but what I love about it is that it's all in the body language and the context. So, like when you're in a conversation in India, you're very present to the whole context and the body language of the person. So when they make this very neutral gesture, which is like
his parents do that for sure. He doesn't do it anymore at all, but
not as much. But the beauty of it is that the other person knows exactly what you mean. And that's because it's in the unspoken. It's
Yes.
in that it's in the connection that everything is communicated. So it can mean yes, it can mean no, it can mean I don't know, it can mean maybe, it can mean
Yeah. So, yes, thank you for that explanation, because when people know each other really well, they're shorthand. And it's almost always in the nonverbals, in the body language, so for me, I can always tell what's going on for you by the tone. Because you communicate so fully through your voice that I can hear, oh, he's a little stressed now, or there's when he needs lunch, his voice takes a certain tone, and it's sort of on the verge of what we would call hangry, that and so that's one of the things that is part of the richness of communicating. Oh, time for lunch.
Yeah, that is almost like a nation level shorthand where, people just know when you make that gesture or something, people just know what you mean because they are feeling you. And that's what also it took me some time to realize this. It's only when I started becoming more conscious that I started realizing that in India, just unconsciously, people are just feeling all the time what the other person, even if there is all this pretense and all of that, it's like still what the other person feels or thinks about you. So there is a lot of richness in the non-verbal communication there.
Yeah, it sounds much richer than the kind of matrix that people create here in the West, which is really all about the individual. And I've got my little fiefdom and you've got your little fiefdom, and then we see if we're going to climb the walls to each other. But that sense of reception sounds like it would make just a matrix of belonging that we are often missing. That sense of deep connection, even if we're just being together.
So I would ask, respecting the time, since we have only a few more minutes, I would ask one of the last questions is, what is the best way to support and nurture this third entity, which is the union, which is the relationship?
Gosh, I'm thinking of two things. That the best way is to do my best to love myself fully, and to let that be my first action of giving love to myself and filling my own reservoir, and then letting the spontaneous expressions of love arise so easily from that.
Also, when scientists ask people why they leave a relationship, when they do a study on that, one of the big things that comes through is the person says he or she would never listen to my feelings, or I never felt like I was validated there. And so one thing that's important is, I think, on a daily basis, is to really get good at naming and sharing whatever's going on in you, and also inviting the other person to do the same, because life is great when there's that beautiful unbroken flow, but you have to know what to do when that flow stops, when something happens, when one person is trapped in a pattern, or when some big stressor happens. Back in the spring, I broke my leg. And so Katie was suddenly put in a whole different position. Instead of being the guy that she goes out for a walk with, I became the guy humping around the house on a walker. And so, but, we agreed that we weren't going to let that bother us, that we weren't going to have that get in the way of the flow. And, it really hasn't. No. I've been healing my leg and we've been having a great time. And so it's just that I'm not quite able to go out on walks yet. So, but I think the listening and the sharing, nobody is the best listener they could possibly be. Even we've been together almost 45 years now, and every week I learn some new way of listening and appreciating what Katie says.
Which I love.
Yeah. All right. Well, great being with you guys. I envy the heck out of you being able to go down there and go to a Brazilian fruit market. Since I'm on the subject, there's this one mango that's only in season for about 30 days down there. I believe it's called the Carolina mango. If you should ever see one, buy it, eat it, think of me. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Will do. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presence, for your insights, for your love, for everything that you are doing in the world. It's been really amazing to connect with you. And
thank you. Well, I want to appreciate too, this has been just a delight to talk with you, and the quality of your relationship is very palpable. And so I want to just appreciate you for practicing and for committing and doing what's necessary to have that be so visible. So, it's been a great pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.